Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Today, I have Karmen Karma on.
Hello.
Hello. And she is here because she did something that is a big deal, something that a lot of people talk about, something that I've been talking about doing for, I don't know, the last 20 years.
Really?
And haven't even gotten close to it. She wrote a motherfucking book.
Yes. It is crazy because I wrote it not knowing I was going to get a book deal. So I didn't get like a book deal and then write it.
Yeah.
I just kind of wrote it with maybe it'll get published one day, but kind of like in the back of my head, I was like, who's going to take a porn star seriously?
Yeah.
To like give them a book. And I reached out to a company that I knew did another porn memoir and they were interested. And then it's still like even though I'm looking at my book right now on the table, like it just doesn't seem real.
Yeah. It's a big
crazy.
Accomplishment.
Yeah, it took me like 2 years to write it.
I was going to ask you how long it took you to write it because, I mean, it's a big undertaking. Not only just the time, but also I think like just going back through your life and pulling. I mean, a lot of shit happened to you.
Yeah, there were certain chapters that were like
really hard to write.
It took me a while because I just didn't want to like relive it. Because when you're writing about it, you have to like close your eyes and like envision everything to be able to get it across to the reader.
Right.
So like I'm living through like every detail again. So for certain chapters, it was definitely difficult. Like when my husband would come home from work, he could tell me like, "Oh, were you writing about something like today?" Like because it was really affecting me. But at the end, it was just like so therapeutic because I just like got it all out on paper and it was a great feeling.
Yeah. So when did you decide, like, when did the idea of writing a book first occur to you?
I remember when I was in high school and I had an eating disorder and I remember like one day I want to write about this. I remember thinking that. And so I've always really been into like English. Like that was the only class I did good at. And
Same.
Yeah. Like I
was an English
writing.
major.
Oh, really? Okay, cool. So yeah, and then I just kind of got into drugs and alcohol when I did my eating disorder. Like I was recovered and then my life was just kind of a shit show for years where I was never in a place to like care to write anymore. And like my life was spiraling. So who would want to read anything like, cause there's no happy ending.
Yeah. It's like you don't want to write a book until you feel like you've reached the end, which hopefully there'll be some kind of redemption, right?
Right. You don't want to just be like, oh, here's how I ruined my whole life.
My life is shitty and it continues to be shitty. The end.
Yeah. Yeah. So then, I left porn when I was 24, because I wanted to have a daughter with my husband, and clearly that's the only way I could make sure it was his. It's like, if I get off birth control, it could be anyone. So.
Oh my God. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
I guess that's true.
Yeah. And I really wanted to have a baby, but you can't do both.
Yeah.
It could be anybody's.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of time as I wasn't working and I'm just pregnant. So that's when I started writing. So I was like, also had like my pregnancy hormones as I'm writing like very traumatic things.
Oh my
so
God.
I was just like a train wreck for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because, I've also like thought like one day I'll write a book, but sometimes when I'm going through like really hard things, I'll think to myself, this is just another chapter for my book. And it's a way of me thinking about like, I'm going to move past this and things are going to get better. And I'm going to look back on this life experience and I'm going to it's going to be valuable to me in some way.
Exactly. And that's how I feel now looking back at it. But like back then I never thought like, oh, people are going to be inspired by this one day. But I definitely think like you would have a really good book because I know you like the stuff that you've been through by listening to your podcast. And I feel like it'd be a really good story too.
Thanks.
You should do it when you're not so busy.
I know. One day. But let's talk about you. So, you started off, it sounded like you had kind of a difficult childhood. You had a good relationship with your father, but your mother wasn't really there for you.
Yeah. My mom, like me and my sisters were just like terrified of her. So we always like, from as long as I can remember, we hated her. Like we were so scared of her. And like our dad was like, as soon as he come home from work, we would like stop hiding. Like we would hide while my dad's at work. So we were so scared of her. And they finally got divorced when I was 6. And like childhood got better at that point, but I feel like something in me was just kind of like off since then. Like I don't know if it was just like I couldn't trust my own mom and she would like say she would kill me and just really bad stuff. Yeah. And going through this book, I actually like went and got my court files from my parents' divorce so I could read it. And like I started finding out new things that I didn't remember in my head.
Oh, wow.
So it started like just like abuse, that physical abuse that I didn't remember. So it just kind of like brought up new wounds too. Mm-hmm. And I feel like because I couldn't trust my own mom, that is why I acted out like my whole life and what I was searching for. Now, like in hindsight, seeing like how my life and how I dealt with everything, I just totally acted out. But my dad was so loving, and I feel so bad because we would be always like, why couldn't you give us a good mom? And he was like, but he like fought so hard. He got custody of me and my 2 sisters. So he was raising 3 girls by himself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thank God at least you had like one parent that cared about you and took care of you.
Right.
Yeah. And you do seem to mention in the book a few times that you probably, the lack of love and attention from your mom caused you to seek validation in other people. And do you think that that's kind of partially why you got into porn?
I mean, for when I'm writing this, like in the second chapter about how I was just always sexual, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, that's why I just think like some people are just really sexually made, or I don't know if it's maybe something that is affected by me being traumatized by my mom. I don't know. But like I remember seeing like a Playboy when I was super young and being like, I want to be like that. And just always being so sexual, like way before most kids are sexual.
Right, right.
So I don't know if it was an attention thing from people or if I'm just sexual.
Wired that way.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think maybe a combination of both.
I think it's kind of impossible to say because I think everybody is a result of nature and nurture combined. And I think it's really difficult to tease the two out, like one from the other. And, you know, from my experience, having interviewed a lot of people in this industry, I've had people on who grew up in loving homes where, you know, their parents were there for them and they still were sexual from a young age.
Right.
And then people who come from broken homes. So I think it's hard to say. I think it's something that like a lot of people who are anti-porn like to latch onto because they like to be like, oh, these reasons are why you became a porn star. But like I know accountants that came from like broken homes. You know what I mean? So it's like it's prevalent everywhere. Yeah. So it's hard to say. Yeah.
I mean, I've always wanted to do porn. I was like trying to hold myself back from doing porn. Like when I started webcamming, then I was like, okay, I need a strip. And I was trying not to. Like I've always been sexual, even if I didn't come join porn. Like I was sexual before then, you know? Right. And it's just, I was like, wait, I could make a career out of doing what I'm already doing. Right. And make a lot of money doing it. Why would I not? It just seemed perfect for me.
Right, right. And are you happy now that you made that decision? Do you still feel very much at home in the porn industry? Do you feel like it was the right place for you?
Everything that happened, even like things that were like shitty at the times, I'm so happy for every little like the bad stuff I wrote about my book. I'm so happy because now I'm so strong. Right. And now like I'm so happy in porn because I'm such a strong woman that I'm not going to be doing things or getting taken advantage of or doing things I don't want to be doing now because I feel like I've just kind of came out like super strong, and you know the industry is a good place. There are bad people, but you have to be a strong person and not put yourself in those positions. And I feel like although things weren't my fault, a lot of the times I just wasn't a strong enough person to like say no, like hey, knock it off, you know. Yeah. But it's just there's bad people anywhere.
Yeah, you kind of like allowed things to. I mean.
It's so tricky.
It is tricky. Yeah. Because, there's definitely things that aren't your fault. And then I know you and I share, like, stories of addiction. Yes. Right? So, and myself having, you know, gone through a 12-step program, one of the things that I found really helpful was doing the 4-step and looking at, like, your role in everything. Yeah. You know, and there are things that, you know, happen to people that are definitely not their fault. So, like, I remember asking my sponsor, and I wasn't a victim of child abuse, but like asking my sponsor, like, well, what about something like child abuse? Like, how can you be like, oh, you know, I'm going to look at my part in that because you're a child. It's not your fault. And she was like, no, it's absolutely not your fault. Like child abuse is clearly not the child's fault, but you're an adult now, and holding on to that and letting that influence the decisions that you make and letting that influence how you see the world and how you conduct yourself. That's your part. Exactly. Holding on to that and not like letting that go. So you need to let that go so that you can like be free.
Yeah, exactly. And that's totally how I felt like. I felt like a victim for so long, and I kind of was just like, never thought I'd be happy. That I just was like, oh, you know, my mom doesn't even love me. Fuck it. Like, I don't love myself. And then, you know, I eventually did get married and stuff. And it was actually 4th of July last year. I like wrote down all my resentments that I have towards my mom, and I wrote them down, and then I burned every single one of them. And I kind of like, in like a morbid way, I kind of like, it was like her death to me, like, because she's never going to be back in my life. So I just kind of let go of all these resentments to get it out, and just was like, all right, that's the end. Like, this is not going to control me anymore. Yeah. Because even while I've been sober, still sometimes I'm just like, I get trapped in like, oh, I don't have a mom type, like my mom didn't love me thing. So like, it's hard not to feel like a victim. So now I just kind of see it as, okay, well, my mom was super shitty. And if she wasn't super shitty, I wouldn't be as inspired to be a good mom. Right. So now I use that, and I'm like, she'll never feel that way. I'll never let her feel like I'm going to hurt her. She'll never be scared of me. Yeah. So it's a good thing, because now like my daughter's going to get a good mother. Yes.
Yeah, it's really great that you can take that and look at that and turn it into a positive thing. And that's a thing too, I think, about like having dealt with trauma and resentments. You know, and I know that we often want to tie things up in a neat little bow and have a happy ending, you know, but even if you get to a point, I think, where you know, accept whatever your relationship is with your mother, like, you're never going to always feel that way. You're always going to have those moments of feeling like sad and feeling like a victim, you know, and just like accept that. And like, you'll regress back to having those feelings, but you can always like move forward through them. You're never going to like get to a point where you're like, okay, now I'm never going to feel that way. I'm never going to think about my mom again. Like, it's just,
it's hard, especially like when I see people with their moms, or like when I hear people talking about like, oh, I can't live without my mom, like, lucky bitch. And like, I get so like jealous. I always have since like elementary school, when I would see people with their moms, like, it just hurt me so much. And I used to just like resent people for having good moms. Yeah. But, you know, I have a good dad, and I just got to focus on the good parts. And now I'm a good mom to my baby. So.
Right. So you obviously don't have a relationship with your mother anymore. Because I know in the book, like, you didn't, and then you actually moved to Florida and you moved in with her. Yes. And how was that? Because in the book, I didn't really see a part where like that confrontation with your mom again after. How was that like seeing her again after not being...
So she loves to act like nothing happened. So she plays like the whole, like, I'm the party mom, I'm the cool mom. Like, we just act like everything's fine. And I kind of just like...
So you guys never discussed it, really?
No. No, there's a part in the book where I finally do confront my mom. And I was just kind of like, let's stop playing the charade. All I need is you to just like tell me that like that you did these things and you're sorry. Like, because we just never talked about them. I remember once in therapy, they tried calling my mom on speaker, and she hung up when like she realized what we were going to talk about. So she was just living in, she didn't want to face what she did. And she's an alcoholic as well.
Okay. Well.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's hard. And it's just like, there's just so many things. Like, I could spend like 4 days talking about all the bad things that she's done. And it's just because she doesn't want to seek help. I just know, and I know that's the person she'll always be. So there's no point of me keep doing this like yo-yo back and forth, like trying, like I just keep wishing that she'll, you know, change and love her kids, but it's not going to happen. So I just know, and I know like how like she's such a violent, abusive person that I could never, that's what I think of when I like start to like be like, well, maybe I could talk to her again. I think about my daughter, like, I don't want her raised how I was in like this violent household and like scared. So I'm not going to put my daughter through that. So at the end of the day, that's what makes it easy to like just cut the tie, because she was never like a mother anyway. So it's just like this person who birthed me that's supposed to be the mom. She never was. And I just kept holding on to the fact, maybe one day she'll care.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the good thing about getting older is that you get to choose your family. Yeah. It's like your husband, and you know, you get to make your own.
Yeah. It's so nice having my own little family now.
Yeah. So what was the hardest thing for you to write about in the book? Was it your relationship with your mom, or was there something else?
I don't know. Like, my abortion that I wrote about was really hard.
That was rough.
But it's so funny because like, I hear girls so many times in porn just like talk about them like they're no big deal.
Yeah, believe me, I shot a girl once who was, she
They're
did
proud.
that.
They're like, haha about them, you know?
Yeah.
And to me, it wasn't like that. It wasn't just like, oh, abortion joke or like, it's just another abort. Like, to me, that was like such a traumatic thing. Like, I don't know if it's because I've always wanted a baby too. Like, I've always waited. I couldn't wait to be a mom one day. I mean, obviously, I wasn't in a position then. I was like broke. I was doing drugs and alcohol.
Sounds like you weren't with the right person either.
No. Like I was not in a position to have a baby, but I was just so angry that I had to do that. And like, I know a lot of people just like take it really lightly, but that was a really hard thing for me.
Yeah.
So writing that was hard, and definitely like the cutting ties with my mother was hard too. And then my abusive relationship, the one before my now husband,
Right.
that was hard to relive too.
Yeah. Now, one of the crazy stories in there that like really blew my mind was, so you were camming first, and you were camming while you were living with your father.
Yeah, I was still in high school.
Right. And you were underage.
Yes, I was 17, bad girl.
Yeah, it's nuts. Well, I mean, you know.
I was a hustler.
Yeah. So, and you were getting like money from guys, and they were like PayPaling you money, and they knew you were underage, right?
No, I told them I was 18.
Okay, so they didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so it wasn't people who were like fetishizing about.
No,
like,
I said I was 18.
Underage. Okay, and then one of your fans tracked your IP address.
Yeah,
and then called your dad.
Yeah, that was so embarrassing.
So yeah, can you tell us about that story? Because that is like, woo! I was like, oh my god,
so bad. So I would go on like those free campsites, like Camp 4 or whatever. You go on there and you can just like stream live, and they don't have to check your age. Like if you go to my free cams, you can't do it without like an ID check and everything.
Right, because you're not allowed to get naked on the free side. Is that correct?
I think you can, but you're not making money off of it. It's just like you get on there for free.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So I would go in there and then like lure the guys to my MSN Messenger, like back when like Messenger was like super cool.
Oh yeah, I remember.
So I would tell the guys out like, I'll get naked for you if you add me here. And then once they were there, I'd be like, okay, just send me this much on PayPal. And then, you know, they're already like wanting it. So they send me the money, and then I just do like a one-on-one cam show. And then I just would keep doing those and those. But while I was on the free site, that's where I think the guy must have gotten it from. Because then by the time my dad walked in on me, I was doing a one-on-one cam show. So like, I hate reliving this.
Oh.
And like, you know, I'm doing my solo show with my toy, and we live in a really old house. So there's no locks. Like the house was made like hundreds of years ago. It's old. And he just bust through and was just like, get in my room. And I remember like flailing myself off the bed and like going on the floor and just like trying to cover myself, like so humiliated.
Oh my God.
And I did not want to have to go talk to him. And then he like repeated, the guy said, "I'm watching your daughter fuck herself." And I was just like, it was so awkward. And like, that's about the time where I was like, I want to move.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll do anything to move right now. I don't want to look at you in the eye.
Yeah. How did he handle that?
I mean, at this point, there was so many sexual things he already dealt with. Like, you know, I was 7 the first time that he got like a phone call from someone's parents being like, your daughter had sex with this girl, and my daughter was there and got scared. So like I remember he'd stop me down. He's like, you will get arrested if you ever do that again. So I was so scared, but I was getting myself in a lot of sexual trouble.
Right.
My whole life. So, I mean, I feel like honestly, like he kind of wasn't shocked.
Right.
Like it wasn't like, what do you do? Like it was just kind of like, you can't be doing this type of stuff. And like, they could show up at my house now. Like, so my dad was really worried because my 2 sisters still live there too. And he started worrying about everyone's safety. If they tracked the number, like, do they have the address? Is someone creepy going to show up? And that definitely really scared me too.
Yeah. It's crazy that like somebody like got off on calling your father.
Yeah. And it's so bad. The poor guy that paid for that show too. I just like slammed my laptop shut. I was so humiliated.
Did you ever talk to him again? The guy was watching your show?
No, all the guys were like one-time dudes.
Right. Wow. Okay, so you moved to Florida. So let's talk a little bit about your descent into addiction. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So since I started drinking when in high school, and every time I would, it was from the very first time I blacked out. Like, I didn't just, like, have a drink. Like, my friends would be making, like, little mixed drinks, you know, and, like, sipping on a drink. And I'm just chugging out the bottle of vodka, you know. That's all I wanted to do. And I just didn't stop until I was blacked out and didn't remember anything. And then when I moved to Florida, I started working in a strip club, and there's drugs, it's a bigger city. And then the second I snorted coke for the first time, I was just in love.
Yeah.
And then from there...
That stuff makes you feel like superhuman.
Yeah.
And it helps you drink longer, too.
I was going to say, whenever I get super sloppy, you do some lines, and you could just... I would use them to go back and forth so I could just last forever.
Yeah. Help with the blackout.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's... Yeah. I was just in love, and that was just what my life, revolved around for so many years, through... while I lived in Florida. And then when I came out here, that was the first thing I wanted. When I came out here, I was like, okay, how am I going to get it? And so I would just ask every girl. And I was doing it very heavily out here. And, I was having a lot of health scares, especially when I was living in Florida. And just I wanted to stop for so many years, but I couldn't for some reason. I would have a month that I would stop drinking, and then I would relapse. And it was just really frustrating for years and years that going on.
Were you trying to get sober on your own?
Yeah. Well, when I did get sober 4.5 years ago, it was on my own. I never went to a rehab or a 12-step program. I actually just started going to 12-step programs maybe 2 months ago, because I've had 4.5 years. I have about 4.5 years now. And I don't have any sober friends. And I started being am I getting too comfortable? Because I can do it on my own. I did do it on my own that amount of time, but I just started getting this worried feeling that I needed a support team. So now I have a sponsor, and I go to a bunch of meetings, and that I wish I would have done that from the start. It would have been so much easier.
It's nice to find a community of people who understand what it's like, because it's really difficult to explain addiction and alcoholism to somebody who doesn't have it, because it just seems well, why can't you just stop? Which seems rational thing to ask, right? Why can't I just stop? But it's a lot more complicated than that.
Right. And
I was never able to stop on my own. I tried. It was fucking impossible for me. So kudos to you for actually being able to do that, for a period of time. Yeah. I could not.
And people at the meeting even ask me, they'll be after the meeting, they'll be like, how did you do it on your own? And I'm I don't know. Now looking back, I don't know. I just really wanted it this time, and I wanted to be able to be healthy and have a family. And, the gym really helped me, because that was my new addiction.
Yeah.
So I kind of replaced my addiction. I have such an addictive personality.
I totally understand. I am the same way. I actually find now that my addiction, I was going to ask you how your addiction manifests itself now, because it's always there. It's something that we're always fighting. And for me right now, it's totally food, and especially sugar. Oh yeah. I've found I was talking to my sponsor the other day. I found that I've started. So one thing I used to always do was I always used to drink in the bath, right? Because that was a place that I could go and be private. It was my me time. I had an excuse to lock the door.
Totally.
You know what I mean? And also too, having, it sounds sophisticated, having a glass of wine in a bubble bath and a book. Look, that sounds so sophisticated, right? So in my head, that's what I'm thinking I'm doing. What I'm doing is I'm going in there and I'm hiding the bottle of vodka under the sink, and I'm doing fucking pounding vodka in the bathtub. Yeah. And then I'm passing out in the bath and almost pulling a Whitney Houston, and my boyfriend's breaking down the door and having to pull me out. Happened to me twice. So the bathtub is it's almost kind of a trigger place for me, I think. And I still take baths because it's a good way for me to unwind. I still really enjoy reading a book and disconnecting. Yeah. But I found recently that I've started hiding. I don't mean to, but I'll take little sugar snacks in there and I find myself hiding it.
Did you see what I posted on Twitter last week? I posted a picture of me in the bath eating pie.
I ate pie in the bath the other day.
I was eating apple pie in the bath by myself, and I posted a picture on Twitter of it. That's so funny.
I totally do it. And I'll find if my boyfriend is coming upstairs, I find just not even thinking about it, me hiding,
being sneaky,
hiding it. And it's just it's so crazy how it's manifesting itself in that way. And then I find myself, even if I'm not hungry,
I can feel that because of my eating disorders. I would obsess with food like that, so I kind of went through that stuff too. It's funny. I think my addiction now is kind of Fan Centro, which is a good because I'm making so much money.
I was going to say that's actually kind of a good addiction to have because
I like refresh the page. Where am I on like the little like top? Am I in the top 10 right now? And then, you know, like how I'm refreshing the money and I have like a goal every day if I want to hit this much amount of money and like I want to hit this much for the whole month. And like I try to hit those numbers. So this is like way better than, you know, doing drugs. But
but it's still there.
Obsessive.
Yeah. It's still that obsessive behavior. And it's like, we'll never conquer it. We just have to try to channel it into more healthy alternatives and try to manage it the best we can.
I think I totally do like my house being clean as hell too. That's one thing I do. Like my house has to be super clean. Yeah. That's like another way I think I take out like my weird little things that I have to do. I clean too, but I'm not like as clean as I would like to be. Also too, it doesn't help. My boyfriend leaves everything fucking everywhere. I know that. I know that feeling.
But I mean, my house is clean, but like it's not, you know. But sometimes, like, especially if I'm stressed out, I'll like look around my house and I'll be like, "This place is a fucking mess,"
exactly
and I'll just like flip out, you know, and be so angry.
Same. I'm glad I'm not alone.
No, I get like really mad, and then I start like angrily picking up stuff, or I'll like angrily vacuum. And my boyfriend's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go hide."
Same.
She's going crazy.
I know. My husband's like, "If it's not like a museum, you're all mad." I'm like, "Yes, I want it clean."
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, all we can do is try to manage our demons. They'll never go away. So let's talk about your. Okay, so you had a suicide attempt.
Yeah.
Too. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah.
Because that's been something that's been kind of plaguing our industry.
Definitely. Lately. And I actually just wrote an article. It was my very first article I ever wrote for XBiz, and it was on mental health and just kind of how I deal with like the two lives that you have in porn. So, I mean, I didn't really have two lives until I have a baby now, but now I'm like two different people. So it's hard for me to separate them. So I had to get like two phones, like, so one's the Amber phone, one's the Karmen phone. And like, I really had to separate my lives. But the suicide attempt happened when I was a dancer in Florida. And it was just, I've always been suicidal since I was like 14. 14 until I was probably like 25. And it just I was just doing so many drugs, and then I started I started doing pills, which I usually don't do. So I was doing that, and then I was working at the strip club one night, and I just decided that I was going to leave and kill myself. And I went to Walgreens. I did this at Walgreens in the parking lot, and like outside the garbage, I was like just started eating all the sleeping pills. And the guy that drove me there, who was my ex, just like I started foaming in the mouth and like shaking. And then I don't remember being rushed to the ER. Yeah. But I woke up there and, I was 5150'd. So I was held, and I woke up and I had no memory of, like, I had to take a while. Like, it was so foggy for me, like, what happened? But I was in a room with literally nothing on the walls. I had my nipples pierced at the time and like my lip pierced, and all my piercings were removed. And I was like in this gown, and there was just like a glass door, and I was just like beating on the door trying to like, and I was just stuck in there. Like, the cop was like, "You can't leave." Yeah. And, they told me that, you know, when they got me like conscious, that I was just saying stuff like, they were asking like, "Why did you do this?" And I was just like, "My mom doesn't love me. My mom doesn't love me." Wow. And I have no memory of that. But when they told me that, I was like, that's when I was like, damn, this really is affecting me. Like, you know, like my therapist I started going to therapy when I was 6 because of her. And they always were kind of like saying like, you just gotta, trying to help me like mend the mommy issues, you know? Yeah. And I just never could. And I feel like I just kind of sat in that for so long. But I was just at a place, like, there was nothing really big that just made me do that. It was just kind of like, I feel like this is going to be my life forever. I'm not happy. I don't see my life ever going anywhere. I was like so sick and tired of being addicted to drugs too. Like,
that feeling of hopelessness.
Yeah, it was just
never
exhausting.
being able to get out of that side.
It's just so exhausting. Like the panic I would feel every time the bag would run out, and just like I was homeless for a while and selling drugs with my ex, and we were just like living in people's houses that were out of town, and like it was just not, it was like fun at first, and then it was just not fun at all anymore. And like, I didn't want to be doing coke, but I was obsessed with it. And I just felt like it was this never ending cycle. And I just felt like I would never be happy. So I just decided to do it. But it wasn't like it was like some new thought. It was always like, I never cared if I died type of deal.
Right.
So in that moment, I was just like, well, fuck it. And then after that, I was like, okay, I really need to get sober. And it lasted like a week, maybe. And then I was back to doing drugs again. So it just, and that's like one thing that was really hard is nothing, like every time I thought I hit rock bottom, I just didn't. Like I did, it wasn't enough. Nothing was enough. Like 2 weeks before my suicide attempt, I had 2 back-to-back seizures after like a huge drug binge. And I was still doing drugs next day. I was like, oh, must have been because I snorted Molly too. Like it wasn't the cocaine. Like, it wasn't that. So it's just like no matter how low I hit, it wouldn't be enough. And it was so frustrating that I was like giving up on myself like all these years.
Yeah. They say you hit your bottom when you stop digging.
That could be,
you know, it's like, I mean, you can always go lower.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's really hard. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, now, like, that's actually how I met my best friend now. Like, when I see girls on Twitter that are, you know, because Twitter is such an outlet for these girls to say whatever they want. So whenever I see someone suicidal now, like, I'm just trying to, like, swoop in and be like, I promise you, like, I was, like, I felt like life would never get better. Like, when I'm at the end of my book, I'm kind of, like, looking back and kind of, like, I wish I could tell myself then, like, how I'm going to be a mom one day. I'm going to be a mom and a wife. Like, no way. Like, I never thought anyone would want to marry me. Like, I just figured it wasn't in the cards for me. So that's what I tell everyone. Like, they'll be like, oh, you know, no one loves me, this. Like, you can change your life. If you, like, are really committed, you can change your whole life around. I feel like I got to live 2 lives. Like, that the person in that book, like, is not me.
Right.
You know, it's just 2 different lives, and it almost feels like that's just like a made up story. It's insane to me that really happened.
Yeah, I know.
It's so crazy.
I know exactly what you mean. You know, what was interesting for me was because, you know, I got sober in 2008. I was sober for 7 years, and then I relapsed, and then I just got a year. And, like, the frustrating thing, it was almost more frustrating for me to trying to get sober again after having been sober for so long, was because, like, I knew what was in the other side. Like, I knew how much better my life could be. I knew that I could be happy. I knew that I could live a sober life and feel, like, fulfilled and, like, have a good time and laugh again. And you know what I mean? Before I got sober the first time, I couldn't imagine what life without alcohol was like. I was like, that can't possibly be fun. So
you think you're going to be boring
and like, how can I travel to Italy without having, you know, wine? How can I like get married and not like have champagne at my, you know, for the toast, like all that kind of stuff. So it was almost like more frustrating trying to get sober again, knowing how much better life was and like still not being able to get there and not being able to break the cycle. That was like intensely frustrating.
It's so scary to me. That's kind of why I sought out the AA program and the CA program, is because I hear these girls all the time. Like a performer, I think she had like however many years, and she just relapsed without even, like, she said she didn't really even think about it. She just had a needle in her arm. And like,
it creeps up on you.
Yeah. And you say like you had 7 years. That started terrifying me. And I'm like, my husband's like, no, it won't happen to you. I'm like, how do you know? Like, we're all addicts. Yeah. Like, I don't want to just one day just slip up. Like, so I started getting really worried about it. And that's why I sought out the program. And like, I'm just going to stay in this program. And as long as I have a sponsor and everything, like, hopefully it'll be good. But it's scary. Like, I don't want to ever be like that again.
Yeah. Yeah, it is scary. And what's scary is that, you know, even though you don't want it, it can still like come back and fucking bite you in the ass. It's fucking bizarre. And it can come out of nowhere. Mine was an accident that ended up being like, that triggered me.
Did you accidentally drink someone's drink?
No. So what happened was I was in Costa Rica and I went to this, I was on a job, I was shooting for Twisties. And we had rented out these locations like from this like really wealthy like oil baron from Texas who moved there and like bought all these amazing houses. And so anyways, through some connections, I found him and he rented us out these like amazing houses to shoot in. And, you know, as like a thank you, he actually like organized a little party and I brought like some of the models, that I was working with to the party. You you know, that kind of thing. And like a little meet and greet,
Right.
very innocent. And he had it catered. Like I said, he had a fuck ton of money. And there was this dessert table. And again, like it was professionally catered. Like these people were wearing like white suits.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? Like they do. And I had this like little dessert that I remember at the time kind of tasted like weed to me. And I was like, this sort of tastes like weed. And my makeup artist, everyone that I went with was a huge stoner.
Right.
So like, no, not everybody even had the dessert that I had. But my makeup artist tried it. She's like, I don't know, I don't taste anything. And she was a big stoner. And I was like, okay, I must be crazy. And then I felt it. And it wasn't all that strong.
Right.
But for somebody who hadn't had anything in their system for 7 years, it definitely got me. So we went back to the hotel. I called my sober sister and I was like, I accidentally ate an edible. I didn't know, like, and she was like, it's okay. You didn't lose your time. Like when you come back, just, you know, we'll go to meetings. Everything will be fine. I'm like, okay. And I hung up and I got the case of the fuck it's because I didn't have like, I wasn't really going to meetings anymore because I thought like, I got this. I don't really need this program anymore. It's like such a, you know, I gotta fucking go to meetings, different hours. Sometimes people are really boring.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to go. I got other things to do. So, so I didn't have like a strong program. And I hung up the phone with her and I went and smoked a joint because weed out everywhere. Cause like I said, everyone there was a stoner. Nobody knew. Everyone had fallen asleep. So I just like found it and because I got a case of the fuck it's. I was like, well, it's already in my system.
That's
I may
exactly
as well. Right. So then, now, after that, I didn't touch anything for months. Okay. Like months went by and I didn't tell anybody either, right? Because I was like, if I don't tell anyone, then it's kind of like my secret, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm of the firm belief that the universe likes to put things in front of you until like you deal with that. So like whatever issues, you know, problems that you have, character defects. And I was shooting and I know we've never shot together, but normally when I work with girls, I give them a robe to put on in the makeup chair, and then I wash them after each shoot. So I was washing robes from a shoot, and I reached into the pocket, you know, make sure there's something in there, and there was a huge bag of weed in there that a model had left in there.
Oh my God.
And I remember like pulling out that bag of weed and looking at it, and literally the first thought in my head was, God wants you to smoke this.
Not can you turn it down? Like,
no.
God must want me to be a stoner.
Literally, like, and pot was my other thing. Like, I loved weed, loved vodka, loved weed, loved vodka. And so I smoked it, and then I found other excuses to keep smoking, and then eventually weed wasn't enough, and I was back to drinking, and it was like, so it was like a weird accident that slowly snowballed into me back to drinking again. So it was like, that's what I say when like I say it's fucking tricky. Like, it was a weird, slow relapse.
It's like when people think like, oh, like people will be like, I can just smoke weed. Yeah. You know, like, or people will be like, I'll just drink wine now. Yeah. Like, it just never happens like that. Your addiction just kicks in at some point.
Right, exactly. And for me, what I realized was it wasn't even so much that, you know, it wasn't what I was consuming. It was the desire to get out of my head and the desire to not be in reality. And the desire to, that's all it was. It doesn't matter what the substance is. That's why, like, you know, alcoholics, drug addicts, like, we're all at our core, we're the same. We use substances to, like, check out.
Yeah, I love that. I could just not have to deal with whatever I'm dealing with. I'm just going to black out now and I don't have to think about it.
I just don't want to be in reality. I don't want to deal with my emotions. I don't want to deal with these stresses. I'm going to take this and I'm going to have it transport me to another place. And I'm going to continue to do that on a consistent basis every fucking day, all the time, because I don't ever want to have to deal with this stuff.
Yeah, that's what I would do too.
Yeah. And on that note, we're going to take a break and have a word from our sponsors.
Perfect.
And we'll be right back. Are you a fan of my podcast, Holly Randall Unfiltered? Of course you are. Well, I need your help to keep this show going. This is why I've set up a Patreon account where you can donate to support my show. And in exchange, you can be eligible for all kinds of cool, fun perks and prizes, which include autographed DVDs and books. See, guys, she's actually signing shit. Free membership passwords to my website, hollyrandall.com, free mugs, pens, shirts, bags, all kinds of really cool stuff. So take care of me and I will take care of you. I will not only be able to continue to produce this this podcast with really awesome, inspiring content about your favorite adult stars. But I will also give back to you in terms of all the cool, fun perks and prizes that we offer. So please support me at patreon.com/Holly Randall Unfiltered. And thank you guys so much for your support. I could not do this without you. We're back. During the break, we started talking about triggers, and Ernie just thought we were just going for it. But I have to officially announce that we're talking about this again. Okay, so that was a lot of talk about alcohol and drugs. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about you getting into porn.
Yeah.
So how did that go? Your first shoot was with Joanna Angel, right?
Yes.
That's a pretty cool experience.
Yes, I love Joanna. So I was emailing her. I think we went back and forth 3 separate times. I was like, okay, I'm going to come. And then I would just get so scared. And I'd be like, no, I'm not coming anymore. And we did that a couple times. And then finally I was like, okay, for real, I think I'm ready. Let's do this. And so I flew out here and I was just instantly in love with porn. Everything about it, I just loved. I love everything. And when I shot my first scene, I was hooked. And I remember I was so nervous because Joanna actually watched my first scene. So she wasn't shooting it or anything, but she was sitting back on table. I remember she was just sitting at a table watching. And
that must have been intimidating.
I know. I was like, oh my God, now I have to do good. And I remember them telling me it's going to be a half-hour scene. And I was like, half hour? Because, in real life, my sex was maybe 5 drunken minutes of sex or something. So I'm like, what do I do for that amount of time? I don't know, the porn positions or anything. So we started. Who
were you working with?
Danny Wild, which he's out now, but that was the
I remember him.
Yeah, so he was super cool.
He was good.
Yeah, and I just was shaking. It was so, I've never shaken like that in my life. Through the tease, I was just my hands are shaking. But then as soon as his dick went in my mouth, I was game on. That's what happens every time.
Key in the lock.
Yes. Every shoot, as if I'm ever nervous, as soon as I start blowjob, I'm I'm a bad bitch. I got this shit. I'm my nerves go away. So I rocked my first shoot, and Joanna was like, "Are you sure this is your first shoot?" And I was like, "Yes, I love it." And from then I was just oh, I totally need to get an agent. Come out here.
Yeah.
So then I was hooked right away. I was like, this is made for me.
Can we talk about the best line in the book?
Oh God.
Fuck, let me find it. Hold on. Is it here? Oh yeah, here we go. This is my favorite line. Here we go. Okay, and actually this is directly linked to Joanna Angel's, what she said. "Are you sure this is your first time shooting?" Joanna asked me. "I knew I was going to love doing porn, but I had no idea I would be such a natural at it." This is the line. "I grabbed a baby wipe like I had seen the other girls do yesterday and wiped the cum off my face, but there was no wiping off the smile."
Yeah.
I thought that was so great.
I thought it was going to be the line where I was like, well, some people are good at being a doctor. Some people are good at being a whore. So
no, I love you couldn't wipe. I thought that was genius.
Thank you.
Very funny.
No, I put a lot into that book. It was really nice to read, and writing it, because on social media, obviously, we're very open as performers. So I have a strong female following that's sober.
Yeah, that's great.
Surprisingly trying to be sober. So
it's actually cool when you talk about being all that stuff on social media. When I talked about getting a year, so many people who wrote back to me,
right? And
people also privately contacted me about either being sober or attempting to get there. You forget it affects so many people.
It's a huge issue. It's a huge issue, and it's not a sexy thing to talk about. Right. So as porn stars, you don't really want to say that, but I've been super open about it this entire time.
Yeah. But
since this book came out, I've had people writing, they're oh, I just went to my first meeting and I'm actually going to get sober because of you. And it's just it's so cool and that's what makes me know okay, it was hard to go through everything I did, but I'm happy because now people are literally reading my book and they're saying they're going to get sober. That's insane to me.
Because if you can just change one person's life, that's all you need.
Yes, that's all I wanted. I was
and getting sober, if you're a true alcoholic or drug addict, getting sober fucking changes your life.
Yeah.
It's everything.
For sure. It's a whole nother, life. Everything is different.
Yes.
But it's just crazy now that this is out and just seeing the response from people. It's just,
you must be really proud.
Yeah, my whole life I was always the bad girl. No one wanted their parents were stay away from her. Yeah. I was always the bad influence. I was the worst out of all of the strippers. I was the worst one with addiction wise and drinking and how I acted. And never in my life did I think I would inspire someone to be anything positive.
Yeah.
Like, ever.
Yeah.
So this is just, like, it's super cool. As much as I love porn, it's cool that I have something I did that's not with my body, if that makes sense. Like,
totally.
I wrote it. Like, even though I love doing porn, like, it is cool. Like, okay, I can do something else too.
Yes. Yeah.
So that was a good feeling.
Yeah, because I think also too, like, the world sees porn stars as being very one-dimensional.
Right.
Because that's all they equate you with. You know, like, oh, you're a porn star, you have sex for a living, you are this kind of person, and that's all you can do. And you chose that career because you have no other skills. You have no other opportunities. That's like the mentality of so many people. So I totally understand what you mean when you say, like, it's really great to be recognized for something else.
Yeah.
To show that you are a multifaceted, multidimensional person.
Yeah. And it's like, if I ever mention, I really try to keep my personal and my, like, Karmen life completely separate. So, like, if you went on my personal social media, it's all about my daughter. Like, that's all I talk about, but I don't put a word about it on Twitter because people are creepy. Yeah. And, like, anytime I post anything like that, like, even talk, I will never post a picture of her on there. But, like, if I talk about her, there's just terrible comments. Like, you know, people think that just because you do that, you can't be married. You can't have kids. Like, you have to just, all you want is sex all the time. Yeah. And, like, it's our job. And, like, I am a sexual person, but it's crazy how so many people watch porn. It's like the biggest demand. Like, I remember seeing this thing of, like, how long it took all these different sites to get, like, 500 million views or something. And it was like YouTube and Pornhub would, like, took so quick to get all those views. You know, everyone watches porn, most people, but everyone wants to talk shit about porn stars. The people that they're jacking off to every single day, but they want to talk down to us when they're the one watching us. Yeah. So it's so frustrating, and they just see us as, like, this fantasy on a computer, and that we don't have another life. And that's, like, I'm, like, already itching to write another book. And I kind of want to, like, in some way get across the point of that porn stars are people, and maybe, like, dig into, like, how, like, the double life that I have to live, and, like, the stigma that, you know, it's so hard as, like, a performer when someone, like, you're getting your nails done. Oh, what do you do for work? Like, it's just because, you know, people are going to look down upon it. So it's frustrating when, even though I'm not ashamed of what I do, it's hard to tell people what I do because I know they're going to judge me.
Well, the thing is, I think that a lot of people who look down on porn stars and who have that idea about the porn industry are people who generally have hang-ups about their own sexuality and are ashamed of masturbation, are ashamed of sex. Right. And so they project that feeling onto you. You know, like, so many people have an unhealthy relationship with sex because, I mean, so many reasons. Lack of sexual education and just the way that society in general is so fearful of sexuality, especially female sexuality. Right. Because you never really see people go, you know, like, after, you know, saving male porn stars, right?
Totally true.
It's always about women.
And, like, this, I bet the same guys who are, like, looking down on these girls and saying that are, like, wishing they were these male porn stars. You know, it's always like that.
It's like cool. And it just goes back to, like, the old sexist, like, double standard. You know, if you're a guy, if you fuck a bunch of broads, like, you're a stud. If you're a girl and you fuck a bunch of guys, you're a slut. Yeah. You know, like, it's just like, and it's just, it's projected in the way that people see porn and see sex. But, you know, I mean, I think people like you writing these kinds of books and, you know, showing who you are, and hopefully things like this podcast and stuff. I mean, we're here to change people's mind about how they see porn and about how they see sex. And I feel like I see changes. It's going to take a while. We have to, you know, a couple generations, got to breed the stigma out of people, you know?
Yeah, I like that, like, mental health in our industry is being, like, a thing now. I like that, and I feel like that's going to help normalize some things maybe. And
I agree.
I feel like my biggest worry is what my daughter obviously will think. That's, like, my biggest thing. Like, but
can I ask you how old she is?
She's 2.5.
Okay, so she's still at an age where, like, you don't need to have that discussion.
No. She would have no idea what I'm saying.
Right.
But, like, eventually, you know, it's going to have to happen. I'm just, like, praying that things are going to be more normalized. Like, so many people do watch porn. Like, I feel like it's not really normalized, but I'm hoping, like, as the way it seems like how, like, being gay was even, I feel like even in a few years, it's just like such normal, like, people, there's, like, pride and stuff. And I see the sexual movement, what is it? The Sex Workers Day, you know? And whenever I see that, I'm like,
Slut walk.
So things like that, I'm just, like, hoping that sex work is, like, less looked down upon by then, because we're going to raise her, me and my husband, to be like sex positive. Like we're not going to be like, oh, go have sex. You know, like we're going to do it in like a parental way, but I don't want her to be ashamed, and I don't want her to have to hide things from me. And I'm just hoping that she doesn't judge me for everything. You know, I'm just hoping as long as I'm a good mom that it won't matter.
I think you're going to be fine. And I can tell you from like a little bit of experience. I mean, I know my mom never performed in porn videos or anything, but my parents made porn.
Right.
They did since before I was born. And they raised me and my brother and my sister, you know, with this idea that sex is not shameful. Women's bodies are beautiful. People should, you know, be able to do whatever they want to do. And a very like non-judgmental
I love that.
view. And, you know, kids generally see the world the way that their parents do. You know, I mean, it's like my worldview is very much reflected in how I was raised. I mean, as a kind of counterexample, look at like the way that your mom was. Look how that affected you in the long run. Like the way that you raise your daughter, and if you just love her and just teach her to be a good person, I think you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I found all these old interviews of my mom back before I was born. And so my mom, I don't know how much you know about her, but so she, you know, produced adult films, and she was a big adult photographer. And she actually started off her career. She was the first female staff photographer at Playboy.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so she started off at Playboy, and her and my dad were swingers, and they used to like bang everybody.
No.
Oh yeah.
I love
my
when
mom
you know
has
that.
slept with like all kinds of random celebrities.
Oh
like,
my gosh.
At the mansion, like Warren Beatty, Jack Nicholson, Bill Cosby.
No.
Swear to God, of her own volition.
Yeah.
He did not rape her.
That's what my brain thought right away.
It was her decision, but my mom, she slept with, I mean, it was like free love, you know?
Oh my
They went to orgy
God.
parties together. I mean, all that stuff.
That's so cool.
So she wrote this book, this very like kind of scandalous tell-all book called Sue's, and about her like time at the Playboy Mansion and just like becoming like, you know, the like first like kind of female, you know, pornographer really. Like
I want to read that.
So unusual, especially at the time. And she went on this press tour, and she did this interview for a current affair in Australia. And it's so interesting for me to see this now, because like I said, this was literally like almost exactly a year before I was born. So she got pregnant with me like kind of right after she did this press tour, and I'm the first child. And the interviewer was, you know, obviously this kind of like, you know, he was very manly, and he was clearly like kind of sexist. And he said to her, he was like, what kind of mother are you going to be? You know, what are you going to teach your children? Like, you know, you've written this scandalous book, and you've slept with all of these people, and you shoot nudes for a living, and you know, you do porn, you know, you shoot porn. My mom, I think, worked for Hustler at the time. And he's like, what are your children going to think? You know,
What'd
like,
she say?
And she said, my children I'm going to teach my children what any good mother would teach their children. I'm going to teach them about respecting people. I'm going to teach them about like being accountable. I'm going to teach them basically to be good people.
Right.
And she goes, and you know, and another thing that he said was, well, what are your grandchildren going to think? And she goes, my grandkids aren't going to give a damn. She said by then society would have progressed to a point that people won't be so hung up about sex. My grandchildren won't give a shit what their granny did back when she was 20 having lots of fun.
Yeah.
And, you know,
That's
and
so cool.
the way that he was like so accusatory, and the way that my mom defended herself, and just looking at like the world now and how she was so right. She was so
Go,
prophetic.
Mom.
She was so prophetic at the moment without realizing it, because society has changed so much.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have grandkids. Sorry, Mom. Working on it. But you know, my brother and sister and I, like, we love our parents. I don't care that my mom was a swinger and slept with all these people, and that my parents went to orgy parties, and that she actually shot herself for Playboy and Hustler, that they did porn. I mean, clearly I work in porn, so clearly I don't care that she did that.
See, I hope it ends up like that.
Yeah. So, you know, like, I love them. They were great parents to me. You know, I had a great childhood. Like,
Awesome.
Absolutely not affected, I don't think, in any negative way by what my parents did for a living.
Nowadays.
And, you know, my brother and sister, my brother's a lawyer and my sister's a nurse. So, like, I'm the only one who ended up in the adult industry. And we're all, like, besides me and my obvious, like, addiction, we're all, like, pretty fucking normal people.
Yeah.
You know? So, my long story short, I think you're going to be fine.
Yeah, I love her. She's my whole world. So, like, the only thing I worry about is, like, kids being mean, but they're going to be mean regardless, you know?
That's the thing. And
a teacher to be a strong-ass bitch.
Yeah, she's going to be fine. And I think you're right, too. I think perspectives are changing.
Yeah.
I mean, studies have shown that, you know, the younger generation is not nearly as caught up and stigmatized against porn as the older generation was. So.
Especially with, like, cell phones, they're seeing all this stuff. It's so normal, which is, like, could be good, but it could be bad.
I think that we need to couple the fact with that porn is so accessible to young people with proper sex education, which we're not doing, and that's a legislative thing. But, you know.
Yeah. I just want to teach her, like, you know, because they don't teach that stuff in school. They kind of just say, like, this is how it works.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
So, like, I want my daughter, when it is appropriate, like, to feel comfortable talking to me about all the stuff that she needs to.
Yeah. You know what just occurred to me, and I don't think it exists, but actually I did think I saw APAC posted something about doing some kind of, like, I don't know, seminar or something on it. There should be like a support group for parents who work in porn.
I would love that. Like, one of my best friends is a mom now too, Megan Rain.
Yeah.
So, and like our kids are kind of close in age, but I love that.
Yeah.
I love that
there's a lot of moms in porn. And
see, I never know because no one really, you don't put that out there as like that. So I don't really know them all, but when I do find one out, I'm like, yay, you're a mommy too.
Yeah. I think that'd be like a really positive thing because I think there's a lot of moms out there who are worried about like how their children are going to like deal with this and how they're going to accept it. And I just feel like that would be a really good support group to have.
I would love that. We need to actually make that a thing because I feel like especially as like your kids grow up, like that's when we're going to need each other to be like, how are you handling this? You
Exactly.
That's why I'm happy like I have Megan as like a friend. So we're both mommies. We're like, we're going to go through this together. Yeah. We'll put our kids together. They'll be best friends and they'll conquer the world together.
Yeah. So there you go. That's your new project. I just gave it to you.
Right.
I just decided that you're the chairperson. Awesome. You're going to make it happen.
That would be super cool though. It would be.
Yeah. I think it's a good idea. So, thank you so much for coming on.
Of course. I wanted to. I was so happy.
Of course. And thank you for being so like open about everything, not only just in this interview, but with your book too. I think I think you have a strong message for people.
Thank you.
And I think it's people like you that, you know, make a difference. Make a difference in this world.
I feel like I am. And it's crazy because I never would have thought that like when people say like, be the change you want to see in this world. I used to be like, oh, bullshit. No one can change anything. Back, you know, in my addict days. And now having this book, it kind of like really has made my world like something like click in my head. I don't know, just like seeing all this feedback come back and my messages, like I can't keep up with all of my emails and messages about my book. And it's just like, I couldn't believe that I even got my book published.
I feel like it sounds to me like it's given you like a sense of value that like you maybe didn't have before, like a really concrete, like something that means something.
Right. Like it's cool. Like I love when I like help marriages when they like watch porn together and stuff like that. But this is like a whole nother thing. Like people potentially could save someone's life, like their health, their everything. So like seeing that just by saying what I went through could help someone like that is like the craziest, like the most amazing feeling that I feel like I could ever feel.
And think that it comes from a place where you were in so much pain.
Right. So that's what I say. It all worked out perfect.
Sure did. So can you tell everybody where they can find you on social media and if you have any other websites or anything you want to plug?
Yes. So my Twitter is at Karmen Karma, and Karmen spelled with a K. And my Instagram, when it's not disabled, is at It's Karmen Karma. And then my premium Snapchat, which I'm obsessed with, and I'm on it 24/7, is snapkarmen.com. And then my website is itskarmenkarma.com.
And I feel like I just realized that we never mentioned the name of your book.
Oh my gosh.
In this whole fucking interview. So her book is Overcome by Karmen Karma. And I assume people can get that on Amazon?
Yeah. If you just search even my name just on Amazon, it should pop up. And it's a #1 bestseller on Audible, Amazon, and what's the other one? Oh, the ebook, the Kindle version.
Okay.
So like
which is
all
Amazon
three,
as well.
yeah. So all three of them all have like the #1 bestseller next to it, and it's like
Oh my
the craziest feeling.
So crazy. I actually didn't know that you did an Audible version of it.
Yeah, that was way harder than writing it.
Oh, because it's you reading it.
Yeah, so like writing it, I didn't.
I wish I'd fucking known that. I probably could have actually read more of it. Read more of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was super hard because there's just like two strangers behind glass, and you just have to say all this stuff out loud, and it's like, sorry, y'all, you're gonna have to hear all of this.
Yeah, you had to process it like twice in the written word and then the spoken word as well.
Yeah, but it's been super healing.
Yeah, of course.
This whole process is super cool, and I'm just like, now I want to write more. Like, I'm so inspired by the reaction that the public has.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great. Well, I feel like you have a purpose.
Thank you.
Not that you didn't before, but even more so now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again, Karmen, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. And then, of course, you guys all know you can follow me at Holly Randall on Instagram and on Twitter. And we will see you guys next week.
Bye.